actually, groups like the Eagles said it best. What they said was, in one of their songs, if you have nothing to believe in, what you do is you take it to the limit one more time.
Take it to the limit one more time.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am Jen, and this is Fundie Fridays, and here on my channel we talk about different aspects of Christian fundamentalism while I do my makeup. Before we begin today, I would like to give you a content warning. This is all about Duck Dynasty. It's all about hunting. There's going to be dead animals and guns and guts and things like that. So if that's not your kind of thing, that's your warning. Today we are going to be talking about the good old boys and girls of Duck Dynasty. Proud rednecks by their own declaration, the Robertsons gained notoriety with the evangelical crowd for their conservative values and grisly appearances that make them look more like ZZ Top than well-connected millionaires. But don't let the down-home appearance fool you. These people are 1% rich, and they do not care for women's rights or homosexuals. But before we jump in, here's a word from our sponsor. I am proud to announce that today's video sponsor is Bright Cellars. Bright Cellars is a wine subscription box experience that pairs you with wine that you love delivered straight to your door. And if you're like me and you've only ever picked wines because the label was cute or because it had a high alcohol content, then you probably need something like Bright Cellars. Using a quiz developed by 2 MIT grads, they determine your taste preferences and then show you a list of the top 6 wines that you're most likely to enjoy from around the world. And instead of asking you vague questions like, do you like a dry wine? Do you like a wine that's made of fruit? They ask simple and fun questions like, what's your favorite type of chocolate or juice? And then show you your best matches. And by now you've probably heard about these cards. They're actually way more than just cute little bookmarks. They actually educate you on the wine. And I love this because I've actually learned a lot about wine, like what the different parts of the label mean and what the soil has to do with everything. It's really cool. I feel like I'm going to be a sommelier by the end of this experience. So as you can see, it tells you the different flavors, which is crazy. Like, I've never heard of jasmine being in a wine. It tells you the name, the year, where it's from, what food to pair it with, what temperature to serve it at, the alcohol content. I know I'm teasing you guys, but it's good to know. But Jen, you've got me hooked. I want to try this wine. How do I do it? Well, then you got to go to brightcellars.com/Fundie4 to get 50% off your first 6-bottle box plus a bonus bottle. And you better act fast because the first 50 customers get these cute little waiter's friends. And they're called that because not only do they have a corkscrew, but also this tiny little shank. I'm completely kidding. Do not stab anybody with this. However, you should stab the cork, rip it out, drink the wine. And remember, each box builds on the last, so as long as you are trying different wines and rating them, your pairs are going to get better and better and more specific to your flavor profile. As you can see here, I'm only on my 3rd box. I'm a beginner, and eventually I'm going to become a wine expert, and then you won't be able to stop me. So if you're over 21 and you want to have a Fundie Fridays viewing party, little wine tasting, go ahead and go to brightcellars.com/Fundie4 to get 50% off your first 6-bottle box plus a bonus bottle. Bright Cellars is a great company. They've got great wine. I love you guys. I hope that you check this out, and I'm just really happy. So thank you once again, Bright Cellars, for sponsoring this video. And now back to our scheduled programming. Cheers! So who are these people? Well, the whole thing, the family, the ministry, and the show is all centered around the Duck Commander business and brand. It would be fairly accurate to say that they make duck calls and duck call accessories. Do I need to explain what a duck call is? You blow into it and it mimics the sound of a duck, and then you shoot that duck.
10.
Well, maybe. Let's see. Did you put your lips right up like?
Put it.
Okay.
Go ahead and word.
Okay, so that's the Wisconsin
Virginia has a
version,
long
all right?
way to go.
The same exact principle is used for Buck Commander and Strut Commander. Buck Commander being for deer and Strut Commander being for turkey. Phil Robertson was actually able to develop and produce a revolutionary type of duck call that was user-friendly. And according to his son Willie, this design is the most copied duck call ever. And I did actually learn a little bit about duck calls for the research of this video, and I think they're kind of neat. I don't like, what they're used for, but I think the calls themselves are cool because they're essentially tiny woodwind instruments. The premise of Duck Dynasty, the show, is that of the misadventures of the Robertson family as they run their business and raise their families in West Monroe, Louisiana.
The backwoods of Louisiana is now home to a new breed of millionaire, my family. Pretty scary, huh?
My idea of happiness is killing things.
The Robertson boys have a very distinct style, and in fact, they look like every male member of my family. Duck Dynasty ran for 11 seasons and boasted the title of biggest reality TV hit in the history of cable television. In 2013, the Duck Dynasty Season 2 premiere had over 11.8 million viewers, which is double that of the final season premiere of Breaking Bad. The family reportedly earned an unholy $200,000 per episode, and they were also raking in $400 million in merch sales, and that's not to mention the estimated $500 million that they made from their duck calls.
I gotta say, though, money didn't change some things.
I don't like meat from the grocery store. It makes me nervous.
Happy, happy, happy. We still managed to stay true to ourselves.
Amen.
At the height of Duckamania in the mid-2010s, these mother duckers were everywhere. They had video games, devotionals, t-shirts, plushies, home insurance, cookbooks, coloring books, DVDs, the naming rights to a stadium, bobbleheads, board games, slippers shaped like size head, Funko Pops, Halloween costumes, race car sponsorships, Elf on the Shelf, and even a Duck Commander Bible. You know, I would expect a partridge in the pear tree in this list of things, but Phil probably shot the partridges and blew up the tree. And because I just know that you're dying to know this, yes, the Duck Commander Bible is King James Version. Duck Dynasty was so far up our collective asses in the 2010s that I'm surprised there wasn't Duck Dynasty branded hemorrhoid cream. Although I'm not gonna lie, that seasoning does look pretty good. The A-plot of the show is usually Willie Robertson getting up to something silly with his brothers, like blowing things up, teaching his daughter to drive, or flooding their loading dock and turning it into a duck pond.
My brother Jace designs the duck calls. Come on! Come on! And manages the assembly team.
Somebody's gonna get killed fooling around on this mess.
Uncle Si heads up operations.
Come and get it.
And my mom, Miss Kay,
Good old squirrel brain.
is always cooking up new ways to expand the brand.
The B-plot is typically Phil killing something or saying something sexist to his wife and granddaughters.
The older women teaching the younger women how to cook. Now that's a good thing there.
Isn't that a pretty picture?
When you see your grandkids all gather around and Mama is showing them how to cook a roux, I consider that a very positive thing, especially in this culture.
The family has always been open about their show being scripted. That is actually very normal. And when reality shows don't have storylines, they become boring as fuck, like Counting On. And for the record, I could not physically care less that the show is scripted. I mean, I'm a wrestling fan. I enjoy removing my suspension of disbelief, and if lying makes for a compelling story, then so be it. I'd much rather watch Willie race lawnmowers than get an inside look at his daily board meeting. The scripted moments and the skits have definitely had an impact on other Christian shows, like Bringing Up Bates. In fact, a lot of shows in the 2010s that were about regular people who do country stuff became very popular. Like American Pickers, Pawn Stars, anything that's trying to find Bigfoot, the Storage Locker people, Swamp Monsters. I'm just making shit up now, but you get the point. And a part of me wonders if this popularity was due to a backlash in the so-called culture wars during the Obama administration. Many conservatives were hungry for entertainment that supported their traditional worldview, and the networks were happy to cash in on this culture war. Speaking of Bringing Up Bates, you know I have to drop this clip anytime they're mentioned.
Beneath the soft moonlight, and I thought forever together would be destiny for us.
I'm not talking about what's next for you. I'm talking about what's next for us.
Taking different paths. Can't you see this is what's important to me right now?
Not that you're gonna be there.
But my heart won't let me pass the past.
During the family's initial negotiations about the show with A&E, Jace told reporters, there are 3 no compromises. Those are faith, betrayal of family members, and duck season. That refusal to betray their faith or one another has been a staple of every media article about the Robertson family. It's their elevator pitch, and it has made them into ideal Christian icons, loved for staking out a bit of holy ground within the most secular, often downright sinful, pop culture of America. Another thing you might find surprising is that there's actually no cussing on the show, and in earlier seasons, anytime there was a bleep, that was fake. That was added by the producers to make the cast seem more edgy.
I get back here and I look at this The dumpster's in the water.
Something else that they wouldn't budge on is the family prayer at the end of each episode. Phil likes to tell the story that the producers kept removing "in Jesus' name" at the end. I have seen that in the episodes, but then the producers said, well, we left it in 17 times. Anyway, this is what Phil has to say about that.
They put that meal in. Even our show that was on for years, even though most of the spiritual religious stuff was edited out of our personalities, they put that meal and that prayer, which became kind of the signature moment. People equated us with being people of faith for that one reason.
I've always wished that they would have run more of the spiritual things we said, but they cut them out.
Yeah.
I said, where are y'all from? They said, New York and San Francisco. I said, I get it.
I think it was L.A.
L.A.
Close
oh, Sam, yeah, L.A. and New York. I'm like, and y'all you don't want me to say in Jesus' name, amen? They're like, that's right.
Yeah.
So I gave my prayer one time. I said, Lord, I pray that you give these people time to repent before you burn them in hell for not using your son's name in a prayer.
You're trying to make a point.
It might have been. And I got done. I said, in his name I do pray. Amen. I looked up and the film crew were looking at me. They're like, Mr. Robinson, could you give us another prayer, maybe tone it down a little?
That's probably not going to make the cut.
Duck Commander was founded by Phil Robertson in 1972, and we will be touching on this, but Phil is quite the character. Phil went to Louisiana Tech University and got a master's in education, and while he was there, he was a quarterback for the football team. Phil began his business out of a dilapidated boat, hand-making duck calls out of cedar trees. He is currently an elder at White's Ferry Road Church of Christ, and you can see here on their website that they do have traditionally fundamentalist values. Phil Robertson grew up bone poor in the northwest corner of this state, a place where Cajun redneck culture and Ozark redneck culture intersect, to a manic-depressive mother and a roughneck father. He was a star quarterback in high school and earned a scholarship to play at Louisiana Tech, but quit after one season because football interfered with duck hunting season. The guy who took his roster spot was none other than Terry Bradshaw, because that's how these kinds of stories go. According to Phil's autobiography, a ghost-written book he says he has never read, he spent his days after college doing odd jobs and his evenings getting drunk, chasing tail, and swallowing diet pills and black mollies, a form of medicinal speed. In his mid-20s, already married with 3 sons, a piss-drunk Robertson kicked his family out of the house. "I'm sick of you," he told his wife Kay, but Robertson soon realized the error of his ways, begged Kay to come back, and turned over his life to Jesus Christ. Speaking of his wife, we cannot continue this episode without touching on Phil and Miss Kay's teenage love story. And since the original story and dates of Phil and Kay's marriage has been fudged, and they have admitted to this, I had to construct my own timeline. So the original report is that Miss Kay and Phil got married when she was 16. That's not true because she came out and said that she was actually 13, and this was in 1964, meaning her birthday was born in 1951. Phil was born in 1946, meaning at the time of their marriage, they were 13 and 17. Not a crazy age gap for the 60s, especially where they were living, but this comes into play later. So, they weren't legally married, and I wonder if it's because of the age thing, until 1968. Okay. I went through that whole little skit there with the whiteboard, and I forgot to tell you that Alan, the oldest son, was born in 1967, which was why Miss Kay was so upset because she didn't get legally married until 68, and she had her first child in 67. Jace, who was born in 1969. Okay? You keeping up with this? You watching this? Phil said he started Duck Commander in 1972. Okay? And he said he did that through the power of Christ, meaning he is saying that he's already been converted at this point. We'll put a little cross here to remember that. All right. This was also the same year that Willie was born. So I'm sure they have some sort of symbolic thing with that, him being the same age as the company. All right. Okay, all of this is important because in 1975, when Phil was 28, and he tells you this story, he converted at 28, started the company in 1972. He says he was a Christian then. Guess what happened in 1975? He cheated on Miss Kay and had a daughter named Phyllis. Yes, that's correct. Now, I'm not mad at him, okay? It takes more than a few years to completely change yourself, and go from the cruising and boozing and bruising guy that he was to a nice devoted Christian, it makes sense that maybe in that 3-year time that he took care of himself. But he's out here saying that it literally was overnight, that through Christ, he was a new creature, okay? Because why did he start his company in 1972 and then have an illegitimate child in 1975? I would also like to point out, in 1975, the Eagles released their song, Take It to the Limit. And everybody knows that's Phil's favorite song.
What you do is you take it to the limit one more time.
I think that is very significant. In 1978, okay, Jep was born. And he's the youngest, and you know what? I think he might be my favorite too. And then how can we forget, in 1980, Ronald Reagan became president. And that just wraps all this together, okay? Thank you for staying for my TED Talk. While she says that she made a vow to Phil on March 22nd, 1964, their marriage wasn't legal until April 11th, 1968. Alan was born January 5th, 1967. Us Weekly reported that Kay was 16 when she made that first vow to God and to Phil, when in fact she was younger than that because she revealed to the recent Call Her Blessed luncheon that she was pregnant with Alan when she was 16, making her just 13 in early 1964. It wasn't legal, she admits. That's the truth. We didn't do the legal papers until April 11th, 1968. After Alan, my oldest son, was born, Alan says, yeah, I would be the bastard in the family. But I want to tell you something, she adds. My heart and my vow to God was true from the first day. Their wedding date is just a technicality and occasionally an inside joke. Now the family laughs about it, she tells Us Weekly. When was your mama's wedding? And the boys say, which, the pioneer wedding or the regular wedding? This teenage love story is not surprising in the slightest, considering that Phil has been open and honest about how he prefers his women young, submissive, and breedable.
I said, well, son, I'm going to give you some river rat counseling here. Make sure that she can cook a meal. You need to eat some meals that she cooks. Check that out. Make sure she carries her Bible. Got to save you a lot of trouble down the road. And if she picks your ducks, now that's a woman. They got to where they're getting hard to find. Mainly because these boys are waiting till they get to be about 20 years old before they marry them. Look, you wait till they get to be 20 years old, the only picking that's going to take place is your pocket. You got to marry these girls when they're about 15 or 16, they'll pick your ducks. You need to check with mom and dad about that, of course.
The Robertson family is very open and upfront about their struggles, including talk about the 10 or so years of marriage where Phil was a complete terror to everyone. During Phil's darkest days in the early 1970s, he had to flee the state of Arkansas after he badly beat up a bar owner and the guy's wife. Miss Kay persuaded the bar owner not to press charges in exchange for most of the Robertsons' life savings. A hefty price, he notes in his memoir. I asked Phil if he ever repented for that, as he wants America to repent, if he ever tracked down the bar owner and his wife to apologize for the assault. He shakes his head. I didn't dredge anything back up. I just put it behind me. Hold on, back up. So he beat up a bar owner and his wife, fled, then had Miss Kay pay the guy off, and then he never apologized. Okay. That's almost as bad as the time that RuPaul watched a man drown and did nothing.
Well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand.
And there's a lot more to this story, so I'll just play you this clip.
You talk about, I mean, it hasn't always been sunshine and roses.
That's correct.
You guys have been married 50 years? Almost 50 years?
Yeah, and we had some, it was actually about 10 years that were really, really, really tough
Very
times.
tough. How did that turn around for you?
Well, I was in a beer joint, and a preacher came in with a Bible, and I'm like, and my little sister's up in the front handing out tracts, you know, religious tracts.
True.
And they started kind of, some of the old guys, you know, drinking beer, you know, and they started romping on her a little bit. So I walked her to the front, and I said, listen, my little sister is one of these holy roller types, and she's passing out tracts. Leave her alone, or I'll break your legs.
And he really meant
I said, just let her,
at that time.
Just let her do her thing, you know. So the first initial meeting, I pretty well ran the guy out of there. And
you did run the guy.
Yeah, my sister told me later. She said when the preacher got outside, he looked around at her and he said, "I don't think he's ready yet."
But that's what started it. And then, you know, my life was spiraling out of control in a hurry. You have to remember, we're talking the 60s here. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, just let her rip. So I finally came to my senses. Miss Kay was after me. She said, look, just sit down and listen.
Well,
just listen.
he started a little early. What he did was, he didn't tell you this part because it is embarrassing. He put us out of the house, me and the 3 boys I had at the time, because he said we were too goody-goody and holy roller and a few other things.
Because the Lord had started to work in your life at that point.
Oh, I had found the Lord by that time. It was about a year ahead of him.
She was converted first.
Yeah, and that's a long story. We don't have time for it, but...
Kay, when that happened, when Phil said, you guys need to get out, you're too goody-goody, did you see God's hand at work at that point, or did you feel
here's the
desperate?
deal.
What were you feeling?
If anybody reads about or hears my story, they would know that what kept me there, I think, for so long was the fact that I was raised more by my grandmother than my parents. And her words were always to me about, well, of course, she always talked about one man, one wife, or one life, which she would just teach me things like that while we were shelling peas or shucking corn or something like that, or cooking, rolling dough. And then she said, and you'll have to fight for your marriage. Well, I just thought, that's ridiculous, because number one, when I get married, it's going to be, we're going to live happily ever after.
We all think that, don't we?
Like the book says, all the books you read, they say that. And so it was like I finally found out what she was talking about. But she said, your marriage, no matter what you think or what people tell you, it's worth fighting for. And so, yeah, so I wanted to look in the sky and tell my grandmother at that point, okay, he kicked me out, I didn't leave.
Can I be done now?
Yeah. And with the separation time, it was really hard, but because I was a Christian then, and where I went is where we worship now, and I had so many people praying for him, and his sister who had come to the beer joint and all that, she had prayed her and her mother for 3 years prior to that for his salvation.
You didn't really have a chance there, my friend.
So when he came that day to my work, and he hates for me to tell this, but it was the truth. He just came there, and I thought, well, he's come up here and he's drunk and passed out on the steering wheel because his head, but it wasn't. When he raised his head up and I opened the door, I didn't know if he was going to shoot me or, what would happen. But he looked up and he had big tears in his eyes, and he said, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I want my family back.
Yeah.
And, then I thought, oh, he's just like I want him. But I knew, he said, I'm never going to drink again. And I said, you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And I found myself being stronger because God was telling me, you got to stand up here.
As I read your book, Phil, I was thinking the person that you were before you knew Christ and the person that Miss Kay is describing is so different than you are today. I don't even know you well, but just watching you on your program, reading your book, you're a gentle man.
It's literally what Jesus said, from darkness to light.
Yes.
By the way, now Miss Kay, I said to Miss Kay now, when you're not going to run out on me one of these days, are you? And she said, Phil, she said, listen to my voice. She said, I stayed with you when you were mean and we were poor. She said, now you're kind and we're rich. Number one, rich is better, and I'm not going anywhere.
He loves to tell that. He loves to tell that story.
She said, well, I used to have to pay all the bills, But,
yeah, I was the one that had to worry about all that stuff.
Listen, I ran without Jesus for the first 28 years, and I've run with Jesus for the last 38. Trust me, the last 38 have been far better.
As we touched on earlier during the whiteboard segment, not only was Phil hurting his family with substance abuse, violence, and lawlessness, but he was also frequently cheating on Miss Kay and even had a baby with another woman.
I went on a rebellious run till I was 28.
He was mean-spirited, he ran around on me, smoked dope, he got drunk.
The low point is when I ran Miss Kay and the kids off.
It's gonna slow the party and drinking down, it's gonna get better. Nope.
So I sat down with this guy. He said, just love God and love your neighbor and try to be good. Can you try? I said, I can try.
maybe something's different about me, somewhat in my looks, a lot in how I acted. We looked at the DNA matches, and my sister shows up as being a half-sibling. So who is he? And she said, well, Phil. I said, okay, Phil. And she said, well, he's the one that made those duck whistles.
So, an adulterous event 45 years ago steps forth a child. I put my hands on her face and I looked into her eyes to see if I could see a little of me in there. And I did. And I thought, welcome aboard. A daughter I didn't know I had. She was lost, but now she's found.
There were a lot of moments in my life where I had to think about who is God my Father, because my dad who raised me, he didn't parent. And sometimes I felt like I even had to take care of him. To come back around and find out that my real dad is very competent, intelligent, loves Jesus, can recite scripture verbatim, to find that out, it has helped me view God the Father as more competent, knowing that I can maybe try to be less in control myself and allow God to be more in control. And that does bring me comfort.
We welcomed her with open arms, saying, here we are, better late than never.
I had mixed emotions about it. Of course, those bad years, I knew what Phil was doing, and I knew this could have been what happened.
You say, well, her life was caused from a sinful act. That is correct. But we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose.
She wanted a relationship, and we wanted a relationship with her.
It's a wonderful thing to bring a family unit together.
I've always prayed and wanted a daughter. I just never thought I'd be this age when I got one.
You thought you had 4 sons. You actually had 4 sons and a daughter. Who knows? Another one may step up. Who knows? You just go with it. Do the right thing. Love God. Love each other. It'll work itself out.
You guys like this blush? It's Powerpuff Girls from ColourPop. This color is called Saving the World. Like many converts, Phil replaced one addiction for another and made up for lost time by going full zealot. He went from mocking the Holy Rollers to putting the Bible louder than anybody.
I never, with my eyes, saw the mistreatment of any black person. Not once. Where we lived was all farmers. The blacks worked for the farmers. I hoed cotton with them. I'm with the blacks because we're white trash. We're going across the field, they're singing and happy. I never heard one black person say, I tell you what, these doggone white people. Not a word. Pre-entitlement. Pre-welfare. You say, were they happy? They were godly. They were happy. No one was singing the blues. Men should use the men's bathroom and women should use the women's bathroom. Just because a man may feel like a woman doesn't mean he should be able to share a bathroom with my daughter or yours. That used to be called common sense. Now it's called bigoted. It seems like to me a vagina as a man would be more desirable than a man's anus. That's just me. I'm just thinking there's more there. She's got more to offer. I mean, come on, dudes. You know what I'm saying? But hey, sin. It's not logical, my man. It's just not logical. There's one race on this planet. It's called the human race. We're all the same. To me, there's absolutely nothing that has color to do with it. I'm as much a homophobe as Jesus was. People who are participating in homosexual behavior, they need to know that I love them.
Jesus was not a homophobe. If anything, he was a panromantic, asexual, genderqueer socialist. At least that's how it is in my headcanon. And it was comments like the ones earlier that led to A&E suspending Phil from the show. A&E swiftly suspended Robertson with the justification that his personal views in no way reflect those of A&E networks, who have always been strong supporters and champions of the LGBT community. After the suspension, every conservative ever came out and made a statement. There was a petition, and even Sarah Palin had something to say. Phil was able to confirm to America that he's not going to be told to sit down and shut up. He's going to exercise his First Amendment rights, and I respect that. The coverage also gave Phil the opportunity to further explain that he loves humanity, hates no one, and if his words came across at all as hateful, he didn't mean that part of it. He was just quoting scripture. You betcha. Then only a week later, A&E lifted the suspension with some pretty bullshit takes. Phil's comments made in the interview reflect his personal views based on his own beliefs and his own personal journey. He and his family have publicly stated that they regret the coarse language he used and the misinterpretation of his core beliefs based only on the article. He made it clear that he would never incite or encourage hate. We at A&E Networks expressed our disappointment with his statements in the article and reiterate that they are not views that we hold. But Duck Dynasty is not a show about one man's interest. It resonates with a large audience because it is a show about a family that America has come to love. As you might have seen in many episodes, they come together to reflect and pray for unity, tolerance, and forgiveness. These are 3 values that we at A&E Networks feel very strongly. We will also use this moment to launch a national public service campaign promoting unity, tolerance, and acceptance among all people, a message that supports our core values as a company and the values found in Duck Dynasty. These PSAs will air across our entire portfolio. Now for the other members of the family. Cy is the brother of Phil. He is a Vietnam vet, and he is quirky and conservative. I actually do find Cy quite charming, and unlike Phil, I don't feel like he's going to hit me if I breathe wrong. He also provides about 80% of the show's antics and comedy. Alan, or Al, is the oldest Robertson son. He joined the show late, and he was teased for not having a beard. More interesting is the story of his wife Lisa, who had an abortion at age 16, then wrote a book about it and published it through Focus on the Family. So I want to know, why is it acceptable for a Christian to have an abortion and be forgiven, but not a secular? I mean, look at Lori Baker. She's had 5 abortions and has made it a whole part of her personal brand. Yet the young person coming out of the Planned Parenthood is a whore that killed their baby. Is the only reason it's okay for the Christian because they feel bad about it? To be fair, I guess the Christians could also be shaming Lisa and Lori behind the scenes and just not tell us about it. I find it incredibly ironic that these same abortion-having Christians are trying to strip away other people's rights to do the same. Do as I say, not as I do, I guess. Jace is the next son. He hosts the Unashamed podcast, and he actually invented a duck call called the Triple Threat, which utilizes 3 reads instead of 2. I really like Jace. I don't know if it's just on the show or in real life, but he did seem to be the most respectful to women. Jep is the youngest. His full name is Jep the Jules, which I think is kind of cool. It sounds like a prog rock band name. He has revealed that he was sexually assaulted on the school bus, and he had substance abuse in college. Famously, the Robertsons held an intervention for him, and Phil held him on house arrest, so use your imagination to figure out what that would look like. Willie, he is the CEO of Duck Commander after his dad sold him half of the company. He has made Duck Commander into this big, huge enterprise.
Looky here, good time to come our way.
As CEO, I've turned my dad's one-man operation into a booming family enterprise.
Willie, he took the whole thing way further than I ever would. Send me a check every month.
He seems the most adapted of his brothers to the celebrity lifestyle, even appearing in Tim Allen's conservative cringe show Last Man Standing and making a cameo in the Christian propaganda film God's Not Dead.
Hey, we're not trying to offend anybody, all right? If they don't want to watch the show, they can turn the channel. As far as my praying to Jesus, my life and my whole eternity belongs to God. All this stuff is temporary. The money, fame, success, temporary. Even life is temporary. Jesus, that's eternal.
He is often teased on the show for not being a good hunter, and I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't care. In fact, it would be awesome if that was true because it would be good news for the Ducks. Willie is a proud Trump supporter and even opened the RNC in 2016.
An early Donald Trump supporter, Willie actually opened the Republican convention last summer.
We need a president who will have our back. When I was behind him, I don't think anyone was at the time. That was pretty early.
Including me.
Including her.
I would be reading Willie his tweets every night and be like, okay, here's what he said tonight. And
She would forward me articles.
It would just kill me.
Honestly, this likely applies to all of the Robertson men, and while we can laugh at the goofiness we see on the show, we need to keep the bigotry and cruelty of their politics in the forefront of the conversation. I also recognize that as a white person, my privilege allows me to overlook these things more easily than a person of color would. I get why it would seem flippant sometimes if we're like, haha, look at the funny rednecks when they're stomping on your rights. So keep that in mind. Sadie is the most well-known of the 3rd generation, and she is a Christian girl boss, in my opinion.
What's up, y'all? Okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I hope y'all like my spiritual gangster sweatshirt because we're about to be talking about modesty. Okay, I know this is a touchy subject in the church, in the secular world. Nobody wants to touch on modesty. To be honest, I don't even want to touch on modesty because I feel like everybody is just different. Like, let people dress the way that they feel the conviction to dress, whatever. But the other day, I really felt like I had a way to explain it in the best way that I know how for where I stand on this. Just like the world, I don't actually want to be a reflection of the magazines that I read. I don't want to be a reflection of just the culture I live. I want to be a reflection as a daughter of the King. I want to be a reflection of what it looks like to be able to be so secure in who I am and be comfortable in what I wear, because I know I'm honoring God. And when people look at me, they're not just looking at what I'm wearing, what I have on, but they're looking at somebody who is actually just clothed with strength, who's clothed with joy, who's clothed with garments of praise. And so I think modesty doesn't always have to do with exactly what you're wearing, but what you're representing. And I think that's really important for us to think about, which actually means putting on that mindset of royalty. So dress accordingly and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. And I think that's a reflection of what our dress should be. You don't have to wear sweatshirts that say spiritual gangster every day. Shoot, I don't do that. I wear t-shirts and shorts half the time, and that may be different for somebody else. But I think at the end of the day, it's just about knowing what you want to represent, knowing what you want to reflect, and knowing who you are and what you want people to see when they see you. Do you want to walk out and feel confident knowing that you're clothed in what God has just designed you to look like, which is a daughter of Him? So I hope this encourages you today. I hope this isn't like, I don't want you to think of this as like a judgmental, like looking down, because I think sometimes modesty is like that. It's not like that at all. It's about just stepping into just walking with a confident step, knowing that you're really representing the God who sent you on this earth to walk it, you know? And I think that when you walk it like that, you walk just a little bit taller. So I hope that this encourages you.
She has a massively successful podcast, a speaking ministry, lifestyle brand, cameos in Christian music videos and film, and she even came in second place on Dancing with the Stars when she was 17.
Sadie Robertson, she's the 17-year-old Duck Dynasty star, now shaking her tail feather on Dancing with the Stars. Alongside her partner, two-time winner Mark Ballas, fellow Duck Dynasty star, and her dad Willie cheering them on from the sidelines.
We actually had a shot of him potentially wiping a tear from his eye. Whoa!
But her dad isn't just her biggest fan, he's also her fashion advisor.
What was he thinking about this whole moment?
Oh, he approved it. It's just basic modesty, like it's out of respect that we ask my dad if it's okay. And I'm a Christian, and so it's comes with me everywhere I go.
The Robertsons are known for their conservative Christian values. Dad and daughter often disagreeing on her fashion choices.
This looks a little short to me.
But now he's approving every Dancing with the Stars style before it hits the stage, even when he's not there.
Those aren't dresses, those are dish towels.
Of course, there's weeks where they're a little shorter, but I only do that when the dance requires it. You know, if we want to see nice leg action, correct footwork.
He's also closely monitoring Sadie's moves, making sure they don't get too racy.
Was your dad okay with that routine? Because it was a little edgy and a little sexy. There was a lot of hip thrusts.
Reaction online to her father's involvement has been mixed. Some viewers saying her dad should lay off. Sadie has shown maturity and good judgment. He doesn't need to be over her shoulder and making those faces he does. While many fans continue to show big support for Daddy knowing best. Her costumes so far have not been revealing, and it's refreshing to see that. She is only 17, so give her a break. For now, Sadie seems here to stay.
My dad texted me, he said, "You kicked butt last night."
Quack, quack, you'll be back.
As long as Dad gets the last quack. Now, surprisingly, Sadie says the only place she'd ever danced before was in her bedroom, even her school band's dancing.
Sadie is extremely bubbly and charming, so I can see why she is popular. However, she is still a conservative.
Have you done research? Are you getting ready to vote?
Yeah, I have, and this is super exciting for me because it's my first time to vote. And I think that it's really cool this year because a lot of young people are really getting involved, and I see it all over media. My dad has been on the Trump train since day one and very outspoken about that. And at first, I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know. Like, I really wanted to look into it myself. And I did, and I guess I'm on the Trump train too now, and Make America Great Again. I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like I align most with his beliefs and everything and views, and trust him, and so that's who I'm going with. Now I guess we're down to the two, so it's kind of time to make a stance.
Would you join your dad out on the trail, anything like that?
I don't know, there's definitely, and I probably will get hate for this, there's a lot, people get really into politics, which you should look into it, you should care about it, but it's a touchy subject.
Yeah, you know what, there are a lot of opinions on both sides, and I
Right.
think as long as you've done your research and you feel strongly about what you believe, then that's the whole point. You know?
So
good.
haters be nice.
Good. And recently she interviewed Jackie Hill Perry, who is an author and speaker that comes from the ex-gay movement. And to be fair to both of them, neither Jackie nor Sadie said in this video, everybody should go to conversion therapy, here's the number. But they did imply that homosexuality is a sin and it can be changed. The ex-gay movement has and continues to be a force of trauma to some very vulnerable people, and giving it any platform that isn't staunchly critical is a bad thing. In ex-gay culture, it is seen as better to be compulsively, how do you say that? In ex-gay culture, it is seen as better to be compet and participate in a godly straight marriage than it is to be happy and your authentically queer self. They believe it is not possible to be both gay and Christian, you have to choose one. And there is a correct answer. Platforming ex-gay ministries like these continue the violent cycle of spiritual abuse. It perpetuates the myth that you can change your sexuality, typically via torturous and abusive methods like conversion therapy. For more info on Jackie Hill Perry and the ex-gay movement, check out my video. With that being said, I'm sure Sadie is a nice person, but most conservatives are nice once you get them one-on-one. It's when they're in a group together that they throw some really awful parties. And again, as a person with my particular privileges, I know that some conservatives are going to be nicer to me than they would, So what has she been up to? She got married. Is that Carlton? She caught coronavirus, had a kid, and as of right now, has achieved Fundie royalty status that the Duggars always aspired to have. Recently, it's been revealed that she is going to be the producer and star of an upcoming TV show called Life Just Got Real, based off the 2019 novel that she wrote. And would you all like to hear the gag of the century? Well, there is actually significant evidence that the Robertson family are posers. They put on this facade of being country and working class, when in reality, they are closer to being part of the 1% than they are being Grizzly Adams. The Robertsons are millionaires, and at least until the show started, the family dressed and acted more like the yuppies they claim to despise than the swamp folk they want you to think they are. Their favorite word, redneck, used to be a pejorative, and outside of the culture itself, it still is seen that way. The term started as an insult to poor white southern laborers, and at one time was reclaimed by striking coal miners who rallied for better wages and working. Since then, rednecks have reclaimed the term and are wearing it as a badge of honor. They like identifying as down and dirty, gun-toting, flag-waving, God-fearing Americans. It's the best version of life for them, and in recent years, it has become particularly marketable. Now, this isn't to say that there's no race element here, because there absolutely is. To be a proud redneck has a racist implication, because the whole thing is about how awesome it is to be a country-ass white person. In some ways, the Robertsons still are rednecks. They do all the same activities and have the same political views and religious beliefs as the bulk of rednecks do. They just happen to be rich. But Republicans love rich people. They would crucify themselves if it meant that Donald Trump could have one more dollar. At first, I thought that performative redneckery would be offensive to actual rural poor white people, but instead, they ate that shit up. And Phil's homophobic and racist comments didn't faze them. It hardly even affected the ratings. They loved that shit, and their Christian fans felt especially emboldened. After all, now they have a spokesperson to take the heat off of them and their hateful views. Duck Dynasty was able to use entertainment as a means to advance the American conservative agenda, and thusly reaped the rewards. I can't really say that this stuff is offensive, because the group that it would be offensive to loves them. So what do you think in the comments? Does the Robertsons' portrayal of the redneck lifestyle rub you the wrong way, or could you not care less? I feel like the Robertsons and their Duck Dynasty brand are a fascinating cultural touchstone in the broader context of American media, conservatism, and how those things relate to each other. Like any other manufactured redneck entertainer, they feign authenticity by presenting only the most universally beloved aspects of American rural life. Cold beer, dirt roads, duck hunts, and family values are all remixed across various country mediums, which both glamorizes and reinforces the hegemony of these concepts in redneck culture. Deviation from the formula is discouraged. This serves to both entertain the target audience, while also reinforcing their comfortable worldview of rural redneck life, safe from all those pesky concerns about crippling poverty, intolerance of outsiders, and substance abuse. And with their formal alignment with the MAGA crowd, they are now more active than ever in advancing harmful social movements with their massive platform. I also want to highlight that this version of American redneck culture also serves the needs of the upper elite, which is itself backward and insulting. The Robertson clan, while perhaps being self-made in some ways, are still upper crust elite to their core. Just like Larry the Cable Guy and Kid Rock before them, they are a bunch of clean-cut yuppies who discovered how to exploit world culture for their own gain. But make no mistakes, rednecks have been poor and working class since the term was first spoken, and is based on much more than shooting beavers. A family worth billions using that culture to make money off of the working class is like an evil capitalist caricature. They may still hunt, fish, and pray before dinner, but they are still part of the economic elite. I would almost call this redneck camp, but that feels like an insult to camp. I really do appreciate how open they are about their hardships. I just wish that they afforded other people the same level of compassion and forgiveness that they do their own family. And for what it's worth, I don't hate the show. In reality, I kind of got sucked in a little. I even cried at Sai's retirement party in the season finale. But it's glaringly obvious to me why the show was successful and why millions of people watched it. The family is charming. They seem like they love each other and it's funny. But they didn't show anything political besides the American flag, so I see why people would overlook this side of them. They just weren't shown this side. It is for that reason that I feel Duck Dynasty makes incredible propaganda. Come for the beards, stay for the bigotry. Well, thank you all for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I had fun making it. I had fun watching the episodes. I would really love to hear from people who are not American and see how they feel about this show because it's unique. If you like this video, remember to consensually smash that like and subscribe button. As always, my resources are in the info box below, as well as my makeup and outfit, links to social media and merch. Follow me on all the stuff, leave a comment, and make sure you're being nice to each other. I love you all very, very much, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week.
They come running just as fast as they can, 'cause they're